Hello, everybody. I am Andrew Fiore, and this is Fiore Calls Game. We are live in Westerly, Rhode Island. It's about 1:07 on a Wednesday, and we are here in the brand new live 321 studio. Fantastic layout, fantastic graphics, and I've got my two co-hosts with me, Brandon Kahn and Kyle Reel, and we have a big guest today. It's MLB umpire Phil Cuzzi coming on to talk about his life as an umpire, his career in Major League Baseball, memorable moments he's gotten to be there for, his work with ALS, which is very important, and what he thinks about some hot topics in baseball. And we're just going to jump right into this here and get our guests on screen. It's a big show here for our welcome back. We got the boys here, and there's Phil. Phil, it's great to have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. This is great.
Yeah, Phil and I got in touch. It's a funny story. I was eating in New Haven, and Phil's good friend Lou Proto happened to check in and see how we were doing just because he's friends with the restaurant owner. And we talked for a little bit, and he told me about Phil, and we got in touch. And only after that did we find out that your cousin, or your nephew, excuse me, is my girlfriend's pastor at her church. So it's a small world, but happy we crossed paths here, Phil.
Small world is right. That's right, Andrew.
Yeah, so you're a New Jersey native, working in Major League Baseball as an umpire. How did you set your sights on umpiring as opposed to, say, like the shortstop for the Yankees or
Well,
playing in the Bronx?
I think every kid in America wants to grow up to be a shortstop for somebody. And of course, I played baseball from the time I was 8 years old and through high school and my first year of college until I hurt my shoulder. But I didn't start out as an umpire. I umpired when I was in high school, just for Little League, just as a part-time job. Loved baseball, and I had no aspirations doing it. That the reason I did it was because I'm going to age myself, but we made $15 cash a game, and usually worked 2 games a night. So to walk away with $30 cash, I had a Volkswagen at the time, and it only cost me $4 to fill it up. So I'm really going back some years, but it really wasn't. And I graduated college, I was a school teacher to start, and then I went into sales, and I loved teaching. I was in a great school system in Union, New Jersey, and I said, I don't know that I want to teach my whole life and always have to have a summer job, a second part-time job. So I went into sales, and the idea was to make a little more money, which I did, but it didn't really light me up. It didn't excite me. And it wasn't until I went to Yankee Stadium one night with my buddies, and for whatever the reason, don't know what, I just started focusing on the umpires rotating around the field. And I said, now that would be a great job. And one of my buddies next to me said, there's an ad in the Sporting News for the Umpire schools. And so I wrote away, and that's how it began.
What was that like, going to umpire school? How do you break into that industry?
Well, I said, how hard could this be? Because I've been around baseball my entire life, and I know the game, but I knew the game as a player. I didn't know the game as far as an umpire. So when I went to umpire school, which was 5 weeks in Florida, there were probably, back then, it were probably 100 people, and they took the top percentage. And I quickly realized that being a player, regardless of what level, had nothing to do with, that experience did not prepare me to what it took to learn how to be an umpire, learning the rules of the game. Having a knowledge of the game, of course, helped, but in terms of the job itself, it did not. So my first year at umpire school, I didn't make it, and but it was in my blood. I said, I think I could do this, and so I had to wait a full another year because the school was only offered in January. So during that time, I did whatever I could, tried to umpire whatever level I could just to get some experience. And long story short, I didn't make it my second year. I didn't make it my third year. And my fourth year is when I finally made it. And so I don't think that anybody went to umpire school 4 times and made it to the big leagues. I don't know if anybody went 4 times, period. But that's how I started. Finally, my first assignment was the New York Penn League, and that's very typical. That was a rookie league. And then once you're assigned to a league like that, you just work your way up through the system, through rookie ball, A ball, double A, triple A. A little bit different now, but that's how it was back then.
Wow. I mean, it had to have taken a long time, and I admire you getting back in there, not giving up after those first attempts. And now you're in the major leagues, and this is your life now, hotel to hotel. Where are you now?
I'm in Washington, D.C. right now. We came in, we had an off day on Monday, and then we had our first game last night. And here we are. So we have a night game tonight, a noon game tomorrow, and then we're off to Minneapolis.
Wow. And it's the same crew that travels to the same games?
Yeah, same crew. So we're together for the entire year. There's some exceptions. If a guy gets switched, if they need somebody gets hurt, perhaps. But otherwise, we're together for the whole year. And so really, we spend more time with the other 3 partners than we do with our families.
How do you select which games you go to? How does the scheduling process work?
Well, we get I guess it's I don't know, 18. I think it's 18 crews, so there's 18 schedules that are produced, and then based upon seniority of the crew chief, that we bid on it, and for the most part, the schedules are equally divided. You may go to some cities more than others. You usually miss a couple of cities, but the vacation days off. Everything is built into the schedule. So we get that schedule, before spring training. And then, so I know where I'm going for the entire season.
Is it extra special for you when you come to those New York teams like the Mets and Yankees being in your home area?
Well, the nice thing about it is that, being that I'm from New Jersey, I not only would commute Mets, Yankees, but also replay, because the replay assignment is also built into the schedule, and that's usually a week, at a time, and it's usually for three separate weeks. So it's nice to be able to be home. So that's I say this year, for the second year in a row, just as schedule would have it, I don't go to Citi Field. Yankee Stadium will go twice, and then of course replay. But it's nice to be home. Of course, sometimes it's a little more challenging to be at home because there's always something going on. You're at home, so it's whether it's who knows what, the doorbell always ringing or phone ringing, as opposed to being in a hotel room where you're in a city that but it's still a trade-off. But it's nice to be home, of course.
I'm going to open it up for my co-hosts here because I've been kind of hogging the mic. If you guys have anything. Well, I think they're set for the moment, but Kyle,
I was waiting on to see if Brandon had anything. I'm sorry, my connection is also terrible. As you can see, I'm in a car right now, so my reception is pretty bad. You guys keep cutting out a little bit, but I'm trying to focus on. I'm following along here.
Gotcha. No worries, Kyle. Well, I had never realized that it was normal full-time rotation umpires that are doing those replay assignments until you just said that now. So what are the differences there in dealing with that replay booth where you can really tune into any game at a given moment and have to judge these calls really quickly? What are your duties like when you're on replay assignment?
Yeah, and you say you didn't realize that. I think most people don't realize, but when you're watching a game and then you see a manager challenge by doing this, go to the headset, and when we're on the field, we first will announce it to the stadium, what's being challenged, and then we leave it to New York, to the replay center, and then we're actually speaking to a colleague. And the way that works is we get a schedule for the week, and you're usually assigned 2 games, and you're in a station. You're sitting with a technician, and the technician, is rolling up the game, and you're kind of just watching the game, but we have no sound. So we're able to look at every other station, because every game is in there, different time zones, of course. But so when there's a close play, there'll be an alert. So let's say I'm in station 4, and it'll say my station, and then everyone kind of comes around station 4, and we'll see, and the technician is rewinding that close play. So I may get a chance to see it, 3 or 4 times before the umpires on the field actually come to the headset. So oftentimes, like you hear the announcer say, well, that didn't take very long. Well, sometimes it doesn't take very long, because I've seen it before the crew even comes to the headset. And then we'll give them what we have, and it's either going to be the call is confirmed, it stands, or it's overturned. And as an umpire, looking at the replay, you hate to have to overturn a colleague, but the video is the video, and the tape doesn't lie. Sometimes the play is so close that you can't tell for sure. One angle may look like the runner's out, another angle may look like he's safe. And if you really can't tell, then we have to stand it and just go with what was called on the field. So, in the very beginning, it was just different, because we're creatures of habit, and we never did that before. But it's great, because it's a good break off the field. And also it's a learning tool, because we're seeing every play that happens, and every play, whether it's overturned or whether it isn't. And if it is overturned, you're able to look and say, let me see, why do I think he missed that? It could have been that he was in the wrong position. It could have been that he was moving on the call, So it really is a learning tool. And so it is a benefit for us to be at both ends of that.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you thought replay was a good thing or not, but you answered it there, because it was very controversial at the start. But I don't know if this is the sense you guys get, but I think the fans have embraced it after a bit of a lukewarm reception at first.
Yeah, I think that even for ourselves, we didn't really know what to expect. And if you remember back when it started, it was really boundary calls only. And that was very helpful, because a lot of the new stadiums, especially, it's so fan friendly that the fans are very close to the wall. So it's difficult at times to tell, did the fan reach over? Did he touch the ball? Did the ball hit the top of the wall and come back? Did it hit a bar behind and come back? A bar out of play. So that was very helpful. Then when we expanded it, again, it was a challenge, because it was new, but it turned out to be a great benefit. And, I describe it as like a medication. Every medication has a side effect. And to me, the side effect of replay is that play where the batter hits a double, and he slides in, and he's safe by 3 feet. And all of a sudden you see them, they're holding us, and they're doing this, and you're saying, okay, we realize what happened. When the runner slid in, he came off the base that much for that long, and that quick, and they changed how infielders apply a tag. If you notice, they apply the tag, when he's sliding, they keep the tag on, and if he comes off the base that much, the replay will show that. And those are hard, to on the field, especially when you know that it's like that, and they overturn it. But that's just the way it is.
And go ahead.
My bad, Phil. Sorry for not getting involved in the conversation here earlier. It's been hard for me to hear everything. So this might be a pretty simple question, but I know MLB umpires probably have to have some of the most scrutinized job in all of sports. I'd say, referees in general, it's super scrutinized, but MLB umps, it feels like they always just have like a specific eye on them. What is like one misconception or something about your job that you wish you could just like yell into the faces of all the fans who spend their time doing the same thing? If you could just, get the one chance to just talk to them and be like, you don't understand like this part of my job that, you just don't get it. Yeah,
a couple of things. One is not only the fans, but sometimes the players. But the players, as time has gone on, they do have a different, if I had a dime for every time a player said, no, you guys have a tough job. But I think that the fans, they think that we don't care, and there were some players maybe that they think that we don't care. But believe me, and I'm speaking for all my colleagues, when we miss a play and we're overturned, the team may be mad and but no one is more mad that we miss a play than us. And so that was one misconception. I think that fans think that we're just out there and that that we don't care about our job. But the other big thing, and this has been for whatever the reason, fans think that they can just say anything that they want to us. And I don't mean yelling from the stands, because we don't really even hear that. But I'm talking about, we run into people and for example, they may say, oh, weren't you the guy that missed that call back in, the playoff game? And you say, yeah, like, but what makes you think that I want to hear that, And there was a time where I was actually at a wedding, and you know how you can tell someone's looking at you and you say, this guy's going to approach me at some point. I can just get that feeling. And sure enough, at the end of the night, he comes up to me and he's, oh, sorry, got me? Still have me?
Got you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You're good.
Oh, he was on an absolute roll there.
Okay,
too.
I got you. You got me?
There we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Perfect.
I'm talking with my hands and I hit the wire.
We're Italians. That's what we do.
That's what we do. So the guy approaches me at the end of the night and he says, hey, weren't you the guy that missed that call in the? I said, yeah, that was a low point in my career. Why would you bring it up? He said, well, no, I don't know. I said, let me ask you, what do you do for a living? And he said, well, I don't remember the title of it, but he was like a pharmaceutical, not just dispensing medication, but he mixes medication. And I said, what would happen if, God forbid, you mix the wrong thing and you got a kid sick, or maybe even worse? Would you want somebody to come up and ask you about it? And he didn't know what to say. And he said, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I never even saw the play. They told me about it. So people always think that, when something is negative, and I'm talking about even people that we know. I wouldn't say good friends of mine, because good friends understand the job, but let's say acquaintances. And they may come up and say, oh, I saw there was a bad article in the paper about you. And they might send me the article. And so I never understood why people feel the need to do that. But that's just the nature of the beast, I guess. We're open game to anybody. But that would be one thing that if I could change, I would, to just make people realize. But when you call them out on it, they do seem to realize.
I appreciate the answer. That's very human of you. You know what I mean? It seems like, umpires, it gets seemed, they just get to be made out to be like these robotic people on the field, but it's not like that. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to have people coming up to them yelling about like how they didn't do their job well, and that would go for anything. It's just that when you're an MLB umpire, you're open to so much more scrutiny because it's in front of everybody.
Yeah, it's nature of the beast.
It's like that there was a Seinfeld episode where Jerry was getting heckled. And he was like, I'm going to come into your job and start booing you every time you mess up. And he did it.
Right. It's true. It's true. You'd love to be able to do that. Yeah. You burnt these French fries. Yeah.
I thought I went through scrutiny when I used to be an umpire back in the end of middle school, beginning of high school. I was just a kid, these coaches and parents. So to do it at the level that you do, it's absolutely incredible. I imagine you just, most of the time you block stuff out. But at the end of the day, I feel like people don't remember that umpires are human, and I'm at fault of that as well. But you guys are all people. You have families. You're just out there doing the best you can. And like you said with your wedding story, it eats you up like when you miss something that bad. So what does it look like the next day? How do you get through? You know, maybe if you miss a call and you're feeling really bad about it, how do you turn it around, and how do you, you know, psych yourself back up and be like, it's my job, it happens?
Yeah, that's the hard part, you know, especially as a young umpire. You know, I mean, now I've been doing it long enough, but it still eats me up. I still don't want to miss a play, but you know, especially during the game, if you miss a play or miss a pitch, you have to do your best to just put it aside because there's another pitch that's coming or there's another play coming. And if you really let it eat you up, you're going to probably miss another one. So you have to, and it's difficult to do. There's no formula to how it's done. Everyone is different, but you have to just put it aside and forget it and just wait for the next play because it's going to come. And, you know, and then if you want to go back to your hotel room and beat yourself up over it for a short period of time, but you have to really learn, and there's no one way to just put it aside and move forward. Every day is a new day. Every pitch is a new pitch. Every inning is a new inning. And that's the approach that you have to take.
I imagine umpires at your level don't have time to wallop in their hotel rooms and just, you know, completely feel bad about themselves. You got to turn around. You got a game the next day. Maybe you got a doubleheader. You got to ump 2 games 6 hours apart. You really got to turn it around. So I guess my follow-up question would be, how do you deal with players and coach backlash? You know, maybe, you know, you don't think you missed a call. Maybe it's a pitch right outside and, you know, whole bench is heckling you. How do you turn around? What's the best way for umpires to respond in your mind to a frustrated player or coach?
Well, it happens, of course, but you know, at our level, they're looking at, you know, if I pull a guy out on a pitch and he doesn't like it, you know, he may grumble about it, but he's going back to the dugout. He's going back up the tunnel and he's going to look at the pitch. And, you know, hopefully it doesn't, you know, we miss pitches, of course, but sometimes it happens where, you know, he may come back the next time and say, hey, Phil, you're right. Just had the corner. Or, you know, it depends who it is and you know, the relationship that he may have with me. You know, he may say, hey, I looked at it, you know, it was just off the plate. That may happen. But again, it depends on who it is. It depends what his approach is. If he comes back and in a very nasty way said, I knew I was right, the pitch was outside, then he's probably going to be excused early.
That actually leads right into something I was going to ask, because people don't think about how you guys are right in close proximity. I know catchers will sometimes talk to the batters, but the batters might talk to you guys. And I was going to ask, are there any players that you formed good relationships with over the years, just from those little interactions, or maybe seeing a manager a lot after the games? Who are some of those guys in baseball that we see on TV all the time or grow up watching that you've gotten close with over the years working in baseball?
Yeah, I can't really say that we get close to any player or manager or coach. You know, of course, we work with them, so yeah. It's you know, you have a working relationship, and you know, it seems as though you know, the guys who have been around longer and know that you have been around for a long time, you know, those are the guys that are pretty good about things, and you know, again, they know that we're going to miss pitches and we're going to miss plays, and replay has helped that because not so much with pitches, but you know, if I miss a play on the bases, if it's overturned, they really can't be mad about it because it was corrected. But you know, you just want a guy to be fair. You want him to be reasonable, and there's exceptions, and you know, you could have the best guy in the world, and if he's 0 for 20, he has a different attitude on the field if he thinks that you miss a pitch. But you know, but that's just the way the game works, and that's just the way it is.
And sometimes those the tempers will get heated up, and you've been in the middle of some of those. I want to ask about one that I was in person for and just found out yesterday you were on the field for, the famous Terry Collins you got to give us a shot moment.
Yeah.
In 2016, I was in the stands. I was a young teenager, no idea what was happening. But that's one of the most famous ejections. The video went viral. Now,
Yeah.
you weren't the one facing Terry's wrath, but what
Yeah, it
was that like just watching that happen?
Yeah, Tom Hallion, who was I worked with Tom many years, just retired a few years ago. He handled that beautifully. And Terry Collins was a guy that was around for a while. I actually had Terry as a manager in AAA in Buffalo when he was with the Pirates. Wow. And it was heated, but Tommy did a great job at that in calming Terry down. And it may took a little while, but wound up walking away, and it was just one of those things. And we thought it may have been coming because of the throwing incident, and but that was a good one, and it's on tape, it's on video, and yeah, that was a good one. But Tommy did a great job with that. And
go ahead, Kyle.
Well, I had one I wanted to ask you about as well. I'm sorry not to bring up, ejections and stuff, but I was just reading, going through and reading some stuff, and one that came up and it just kind of was like really confusing. I'm like, how does this happen? There was a game in 2000 with the Devil Rays and the Red Sox where 9 Devil Rays got ejected and no Red Sox got ejected. And I was reading that, like, how does that happen?
Yeah, well, it was bad blood. That was on my birthday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's what Andy said.
Yeah, and it was overthrowing incidents, and I don't remember that you said no one was ejected from.
It said that it was like some type of record where the most amount of players from one team had got ejected and nobody from the other team had got ejected.
Yeah, I don't really remember that no one got ejected from the other team because I'm sure that they were thrown back. But
probably.
That was a crazy. That was probably one of the craziest situations I've ever been in, and I've been in throwing incidents before, but that one was, we were throwing people left and right. That was crazy.
I just got breaking news in front of me right now. Jen Powell is set to become the first woman to umpire a game in Major League Baseball between the Marlins and the Braves. Did you know about this already? Do you know her?
Well, I worked a couple spring training games with Jen this year, and she did a pretty good job. So we thought that it might have been coming, and I just did hear this morning that she's going to get her shot. So congratulations and good for Jen. I think it's in Atlanta. I think the game's in Atlanta, correct?
Yes, I see that. Yep. It's a doubleheader.
Ah, okay. All right.
She's from New Jersey like you. Look at that.
Oh, yeah. I didn't remember that, but yeah. What city is she from? I don't remember.
They don't say, they just say she's from New Jersey, and it's the ESPN article in front of me, but
okay.
Funny that comes up right as we're talking to you.
Yeah, right.
But that's got to be a groundbreaking moment for your industry as a whole.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the other sports. The NFL has women officials, and the NBA does as well. So here we come.
Yeah, that's great for, society as a whole. And you've done other big work beyond baseball. You did a lot of work with ALS. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, it was I can't believe it. This is our 22nd year raising money for ALS. It started with a guy I grew up with. We weren't technically blood cousins, but Robert Longo, his mother's sister married my mother's brother. So we weren't related, but we had the same first cousins as a result of that. And he was a scholar. He was a scholar athlete. He went to Harvard, played football at Harvard, and just was a great supporter of mine. And he was just a go-to guy. If you had a question, if you had a problem, you always talk to Robert. That went for all the guys. The guys I'm closest to this day are guys I graduated high school with in Belleville High School in New Jersey. But one day he said, my hand is getting numb, and long story short, it went up his arm and down the other side. Then it went to his leg, and then he was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And he said, "I've just been given a death sentence because there is no cure." And he lasted about 5 years. And, and we decided to raise money to do it. And, my wife, Gilda, when I signed my contract, she said, it took you a long time to get there. You got to give back. You have to give something back. And I said, she's absolutely right. What do I do? Do I go to children's hospitals? So, what do I do? Do I go to schools and talk to the kids at school about making decisions, good decisions? And then all of a sudden, Robert comes down with this. So I said, this is what I'm going to do. So we started the Robert Longo ALS Fund, and this, like I say, this will be our 22nd year. So we give money for research. We give money for patient care, whether it's helping to pay bills, whether it's to get wheelchairs, ramps, chair lifts, and we also give scholarships to students going to college or trade school whose parent or grandparent may have been affected by ALS. And last year we gave $100,000 in ALS research. So it really has grown to a level that I would never have expected when we first started this 22 years ago. But because of my job in baseball and the connections in baseball, and the help with MLB, I was able to have. We use and Lou. You mentioned Lou Prado. He comes to the dinner each year, and he drives down from Connecticut, and he brings people with him who are Bill. Just tremendous help. People want to help, and people want to support. And what I found over the years is that as long as people know where the money's going and it's legitimately going to the right place, people are more than happy to support. And that's what I've found over the years, and it's just been great. And again, because of my position, I'm able to have mystery guests over the years, and people try to guess who it's going to be. And we've had Joe Torre and Bob Costas, and last year we had Don Mattingly and Goose Gossett. It's been a whole Tommy Lasorda, Steve Sciarippa from the Sopranos and Blue Bloods has become a friend, and he's always supportive, and he comes and just people love to see that, and I'm just so proud that I'm able to bring those type of people and those type of names into our small town of Belleville, New Jersey, and it's grown. We have 600 people come every year. It's the same people, so we're doing good work. And it's a terrible, terrible disease, no cure, and it just ALS eventually takes, and the progression is different with everybody. But it will eventually take all muscle movement. The patient will be left with nothing but the movement of their eyes, and it's just it's terrible to see. It's terrible to witness.
It's incredibly tragic, but I'm very happy to see the work you've done with it. If our viewers want to help, where can they go? If there's a link or anything we could put up.
Yeah, we have a website that gives all the details, and it's called wefighTals.org. wefighTals.org.
You get that on screen for you, folks,
and that'll bring you right to our website. It'll show pictures and video from the events that we've had over the years. It'll we always have a live and silent auction. It's just become. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun, and it's very, very rewarding and very gratifying what we do.
You said wefighTals.org?
Yes.
All right, we're getting that up in one moment. Just anybody who can help, who wants to help, give support to these people struggling with this incurable disease, right there on the screen, wefighTals.org. And I'm encouraged hearing some of those names that you mentioned, hearing that those guys, despite reaching the top, have not forgotten to take care of those around them who need help. And I do have to say, I'm obligated to say, Steve Sharippa is a big Westerly fan. You and I talked about this. He spends a lot of time in this community. I know exactly which restaurant he's publicly said has the best meatballs here. But
if anybody knows a good meatball, it's Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, I've even heard he has a beach house up here or something. He wants to be in the area more. So for our Westerly viewers,
he loves it up there. Yeah.
Yep. Great to hear our community getting on the radar.
We had another guy from your neck of the woods, Bobby Valentine, and he was probably the quickest person to respond. The difficult thing about getting the mystery guest is when you extend the invitation, until they commit, you can't go to plan B. And so sometimes, if they take a long time to commit, then it could put me behind the 8 ball in terms of that. But Bobby Valentine, I called him. He was driving his car, and he said, "Let me pull over. Let me look at my schedule, my calendar." And we always do it in January. It's this year, our event is going to be the last Wednesday of January. It's always been the last Thursday, but we moved it up a day. And he pulled over and he said, "What's the date again?" And I gave him the date for that year. He said, "I have nothing going on. I'm in." And
awesome.
It was all of 10 minutes. And we happened to have a snowstorm that day. And I said, my wife is saying to me, you can't have the dinner. You have to cancel. And I said, well, let me call Bobby and let me see. And when I called him, he said, I said, "Bobby, what are you thinking?" He said, "I'm thinking that as long as your guy can come and pick me up, I'm in." So we had the dinner. Let me just plug in we had the dinner, and it was great. But he was very easy. But not to say that the others were not, they were, but he was the quickest to commit. And it was a matter of 10 minutes he committed. And if you ever heard him, he's an excellent speaker, as was Joe Torre, as was Tommy Lasorda, as was Tony La Russa. It's become a big deal in our small pond. But we're raising funds and we're doing good work. We're helping people.
That is incredible. I'm not surprised to hear that about Bobby. Everything I've heard about him, the speech, I know he's a great speaker, but that just fits the description I've heard of him as a guy, similar to Joe Torre and all those guys. So that's fantastic work, and the whole community thanks you for doing that. It's important stuff, and glad to see you giving back outside of baseball. But getting back to baseball, though, I want to ask you about playoff games, because I know you've done a few of those, including the 2017 World Series. What do you feel more pressure when you're doing a playoff game in that type of atmosphere?
Well, the postseason is a much different atmosphere, no question about it. Our job is the same: all strikes, safe out. Don't want to be wrong, but to say that you don't feel more pressure in a postseason game, whichever round you're working, would be an understatement, because you certainly do. But really, after the first pitch and after the first couple pitches, it's the same game. You're working the same job, and your feelings are the same out there, and your goals are the same. So it's it's an honor to work the postseason. There is certainly much more pressure. The entire atmosphere is completely different, even for the players, even for the fans. They're more excited to be at a postseason game than a game in spring training or a game in May. But it's a great feeling.
What was the best game you've ever called?
Well, I guess the most exciting game was my first game, which was in St. Louis against the Dodgers in 1991. But to say, working the plate in Game 1 in the 17 World Series, that had to be the pinnacle of my career, because everyone is working to get to the World Series. The players are, the teams are, coaches, trainers, everybody wants to get to the World Series, and certainly the umpires feel the same way. So to be able to achieve that was very special.
Now, you've also called several no-hitters. And I saw you interviewed about a few of those, and you said that you didn't know till the very end.
I did. I didn't know. My first one, which was in Wrigley, I didn't realize until the last out was made, and I was walking off the field, and I see it was Cole Hamels was the pitcher, and I see them mobbing him on the mound, and I had heard the rumors that he was going to be traded, and I'm saying, what? They can't be that happy that he is getting traded. And as I was walking off the field in Wrigley, I looked up at the scoreboard and I saw all zeros, and I said, I just worked a no-hitter. So I didn't know. And that was my second one. My first one was in San Diego. I was just coming off vacation, and I flew across the country to San Diego from Newark, and I worked the plate. And Bud Smith with the Cardinals. And I didn't realize it until this was before the DH in the National League, and he comes up to bat in the ninth inning, and I'm saying, what? I was a little surprised that he was batting, and then I heard somebody yell from the stands, "Hey, Bud, don't worry about all those zeros." I look at the scoreboard and I said, "This kid's pitching a no-hitter." I had no idea, and so that was a nerve-wracking bottom of the ninth, but we got through it.
That must have been incredible, being part of history so many times.
It's just exciting. The game is exciting, and you never know what. The great thing about the game is that you don't know what's coming today.
Con, I think you had something.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, it's probably for the best that you're not realizing that, in the couple no-hitters that you've called, that they were at no hits, because even though your job is entirely different, it's not your job whether the pitcher gives up a hit or not. I assume you feel the added pressure. So that bottom of the ninth, when you realized that the kid was a 3 outs away from a no-hitter, like how does that feeling overcome you, and how do you block that out?
I was happy I didn't know, and for Cole Hamels, I was happy I didn't know till the game was over. And with Buds, it was, like I say, I had to go through 3 outs, and you just put more pressure on yourself because you don't want to be a part of changing anything that's supposed to happen. And it was just a matter of, because then you say, well, I know that every network is watching this game right now. Like ESPN they had to click in, MLB Network had to click in, and so I did feel more pressure, and I just wanted to go smoothly. And if he was going to get the no-hitter, I just didn't want to be a part of him getting it or not getting it.
That's really inspiring, actually. You don't want to get in the way. You just want to make sure that you're doing your job and doing the best you can. And
that's it.
It's smart for you to realize that, because that happens even nowadays. There haven't been many instances this season, but every network going to tune in during the 8th or 9th inning when somebody's throwing a no-hitter. So
yeah,
that awareness is something that, I mean, there's a reason that you're at the level you are. The awareness, the decision making. So I guess my follow-up question would be, do you pay attention to the scoreboard and the hit column often? Because if that affects you, late in the game, knowing everybody's coming in to watch when there are a few hits or no hits, how much exactly are you keeping track of? I mean, I assume you got to know the score and all that, but
yeah, I really don't look at the scoreboard much. I mean, of course you do, check the innings but I did last night's game, because I think it was a first for me. There were 35 hits in last night's game, and 35 or 34 hits, and 24 of them came from the A's.
Yeah.
And so I kept looking at the board for that, saying, am I seeing this right? And I can't imagine I've ever worked a game where one team had 24 hits in the game. But so I did look at the scoreboard a little bit more last night, but for the most part, a glance at it. But I'm not really, I'm not looking at the hits and that I mean, to us, it doesn't matter if a hitter has a hitting streak or if I mean no hitter, kind of everybody kind of gets a sense for that at some point, I guess. But yeah, it's you know, there was a situation years ago at Citi Field, and I think that they were playing Washington, and I think that they only had a couple of hits, and there was a commotion about it, and you know, after the game was over, and somebody said, Phil, I heard that you said that they didn't deserve to win because they only had 2 hits. I said, I have no idea how many hits they had. I wouldn't have said that anyway if I did know, but I don't look, you know, again, night after night, we're not really paying attention to that.
No,
I guess it's out of your. Oh, sorry, Andrew.
No, you go.
I guess that's kind of out of your job description to pay attention to how many runs and hits there are. You just got to go outs and.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see, you know, up on the board, a hitter comes up and he'll say he has a 15-game hitting streak. I mean, that good for him, but that doesn't mean anything to me, to umpires. You know, I mean, if he's supposed to have a 16-game hitting streak, then so be it. But who said that's not in our job description to think about that, you know, and we don't.
I just wanted to hop in with a quick question here. Sorry about that. Well, you might have got into this a little bit. Like I said, you've been cutting out unfortunately the whole time, so I missed like your answer to my last question, sadly. So I'll have to go back and rewatch to hear what you said. But what do you think is like makes the difference between like good umpires and great ones who, you know, eventually get asked to do playoff games, get asked to do World Series games? Obviously, besides, you know, just making the right calls consistently, but is there any like nuanced things that would, you know, make the difference between a great and good umpire?
Yeah, I think you said it, is the consistency. You know, I mean, even the greatest of umpires, if you go through, you know, I mean, we have a handful of umpires in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Somewhere along the line, you know, their consistency level was above and beyond, but they didn't go without missing calls and missing pitches and even you know, everybody's gonna have a bad game, you know, whether it's a player, you know, whether it's us for sure, and but you know, the difference is, like people say, well, you know, what's the difference between a good college umpire and a Major League Baseball umpire? And I think the difference is just the grind of it. You know, every day we're doing this every day. We get time off, we get days off, but you know, a day off could be, you know, flying across the country for the next game. But we get vacation time. We get 4 one-week vacations, but it's the grind of doing it every day, and that's the biggest difference, is to be able to just, you know, keep yourself at that level, regardless of whether you have the first and second place team or whether you have the teams that are in the bottom of the standings. The game to us is the same, and you know, it really doesn't matter who's playing. Obviously, if you have a game, you know, between teams that are tied for first, there's more electricity in the air. But after the first pitch, our job is the same: ball strike, safe out, and controlling the game.
You saw the last night, Shea Langoliers hit 3 home runs in front of you, which helped my fantasy team a lot, actually. But I was gonna say, has there ever been a time where you're watching one player perform and you're just blown away? Like, what was the most impressive performance you've seen, or who was the most impressive player you've ever called?
You know, sometimes, like I remember watching Jeter, you know, playing shortstop, and if I was working first base, and I thought that, you know, off the bat, I'm saying, oh, it looks like it's going to be a base hit up the middle or a base hit, you know, between short and third, and all of a sudden he makes the play, and he makes a play where it's not even that close to me, because if I see a guy diving in the hole, I'm saying, okay, I got a close play coming. Not that you anticipate, but you certainly know if it's going to be, you know, you kind of get a feel if it's going to be a close play. But you know, so things like that were like a big difference between coming up through the minor leagues and And when you saw a player in the minor leagues able to do things like that, and you say, okay, this guy is head and shoulders above the rest of the guys that he's playing with. But I think as a young umpire, I think one of the most, exciting things that I saw was Cal Ripken. I think he had 5 hits or something like that in a game. And and again, I didn't realize it at the time. Even last night, you mentioned Shea, and I knew that he hit a couple home runs, but I happened to look on the board, and he hit 3, and I didn't realize that. So again, it's a home run, but my mind isn't really working to say, oh. But when he hit the 3rd, I said, "Is that his second? He hit 1 already, didn't he?" And it turned out he hit 2 already. But so I'm not really kind of thinking about it, but eventually you find out, whether you see it in the box score the next day or you talk about it after the game. One of my partners may say, yeah, the kid hit 3 home runs, whatever. But yeah. But again, in the big scheme of things, we're not thinking about that. We're not interested really in that. Good for him. But it's a different. We're on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, well, it's got to be impressive to watch. So if you could do me a favor and help Shea and James Wood out a little bit for my fantasy team.
Now you see, that's a typical thing that a fan says, and we have nothing that we could care less about what they do out there. What I care about is myself and the 3 guys I'm working with, that they get everything right. And but your question is typical of what someone would say.
So I was playing around with it, but so people genuinely ask that, thinking you can?
No, not that they can, but for the same reason that you said it, just as a joke, to be funny. I just spoke to a woman in the doctor's office today, and she said, "I want you to help my Mets out now." And it's just it's just the way it is, and people say it to be funny, and but we always hear it. Always hear that.
Yeah, probably like 20 times a day. I was looking into games I've been to, and I found out I've seen you 4 times over the years. You called my second baseball game ever between the Mets and the Rockies in 2010. The Mets won 4-0. Johan Santana pitched a complete game. The Terry Collins one I already talked about. And then a game in 2017 where the Rangers beat the Mets at Citi Field. Joey Gallo hit a home run in that one. Rafael Montero got the loss for the Mets. And then most recently, 2023, the Mets got a big win at home against the Pirates. But do those games, like just the regular season games, do they just all blend in together for you over the last 20 years?
Yeah. Again, if you didn't mention that Shea hit 3 home runs yet last night, I wouldn't even have thought about it. I wouldn't have even remembered it. The games, once the game is over, it's over. And just thinking about, last night I worked second base, and tonight I'm just thinking about my game at first base. That's what, we rotate clockwise. So, that's the games blend together. I mean, if something significant, really significant happens, you may remember that, like a no-hitter, but other than that, that's a good way to put it. All the games blend together, because we're working 120, 125 games a year.
How do you keep track of those really obscure rules that fans don't know? Is there one rule in particular that you could share that you think like no one watching this would know unless they're an umpire?
Well, you probably think that that if a hitter is, if a runner is on a base and gets hit with a ball, he's safe because he's on a base, right? But people don't realize that even if he's on a base and gets hit with a batted ball, he's still out.
Wow.
So there's rules like that you just don't see very often, and so that's what makes that's why it's important that we keep talking about the rules and reading about the rules, because if something happens every day, then it's easy to remember. But if something is, like you say, obscure that you haven't seen, or, those are the things that you just have to know. But yeah, I think most fans, I don't think are really up on the rules completely. They may know the basics, but as far as like an obscure rule, sometimes the players don't even know.
I find it fascinating. I think they've got to give you guys more the benefit of the doubt on those things. But Brandon, you got something?
Yeah, I was just thinking when you were talking about the rules that I played baseball up until high school, and then umpired for a couple of years at the end of my playing days, and it took me forever to understand like just the infield fly rule. I don't know why, but the infield fly is something, and you don't even see it that much. At least when I'm watching my Sox, I don't even see it that much. I guess that brings to my question that I had while we're talking about the rules. Bunch of new rules coming out year to year. Not a lot of old rules fizzle out. More so, some new rules get added. I don't know how much you can talk about it, but are there any rules like obstruction, or some rules that you're more in favor of that are more umpire friendly and easier to deal with, or some rules that you really aren't a fan of that are kind of difficult to deal with?
Well, with the institution of replay and the shot clock, the pitch clock, that brought in a host of new rules. And so, when I first started, you just had to learn the rule book, basic rule book. But now there are so many new directives about, pitcher throwing over to we never had to worry about how many times he threw over to try to pick off a runner. Now he can only do it twice. And if he throws over a third time, runners advance. So things like that. And with the pitch clock, the hitter has to be ready in 9 seconds. So they just changed the running lane rule, and they made it wider, where it used to just be 3 feet. Now it could be wider than 3 feet because it goes to the grass line in fair territory. And, and not every stadium is uniform to that. So it's constant. And we have to constantly be refreshing in the rules. And, we have like a rule of the day on our crew. So someone will just open up the rule book and just read one thing. That's it. And we do it every day. And we did that when I was working with Jerry Davis, and the rule that just randomly was selected was a pitcher with a foreign substance on his hand. And we were working in Boston with the Yankees, and I forget who the pitcher was for the Yankees, and he had all pine tar on his arm, and Boston saw it in their clubhouse on TV. And
I remember that.
Yeah. And it was just a coincidence that we happened to just talk about that rule on that day. And here it is. Here it happened. So it was fresh in our mind, of course. But it's constant. When people ask, like if we run into like young umpires, and they say, what do I need to do? And the first thing I say is, you got to have your nose in the rule book. You have to know the rules. And they're not so much they're ever changing, but they're ever being added to.
I think I was watching that. My family and I were on vacation years ago. If that's the same instance I'm thinking of, we were on vacation watching that game. He had I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was CC. I don't think it was. But,
no, not CC.
Was it Pineda?
Yeah, because
yes, it was. It was Pineda.
Yes. Yep. That was the game. Oh my God. It was a few years ago. I was still basically a kid. I remember pine tar on his neck. I didn't even understand that rule, but that's pretty ironic. My next question regarding rules is, do you think, with all the constant rule changes, you mentioned only being able to throw over twice, managers and pitching coaches only get a certain amount of mound visits per game. Do you think that all these rule changes that inevitably are supposed to speed the game up, make it quote unquote more watchable? Are you in favor of things like that? And do you think the league is doing a good job with these constant rule changes?
Yeah, they're constantly trying. The purpose of all of those new rules is to speed up the game. And even with the pitch clock, we took a half hour off the game time, and that was huge because what was the complaint about baseball? That's so slow, and there was. I mean, think about it. By just putting in those few changes to cut a half hour off the game, that means that a hitter could only ask for time one time during his at bat. If you remember, I know you guys have to remember, there were some hitters that they would step out and adjust their glove every pitch.
Oh, yeah.
You don't think that it adds up.
Omar.
But when you have, yes, he was fun. But, you don't think it adds up. But when you talk about, 9 hitters and them doing it every time, the result speaks for itself. You cut a half hour off the game. But,
I remember with the substances, I was at work when you got Max Scherzer. I remember it vividly.
Yeah. That was that was so the guys the pitchers have really cleaned it up because I don't think that anyone has violated that I don't think this year it's happened. I'm not sure, but it's just that was a huge change for the pitchers because they always had something to better their grip in the past, but especially young pitchers, we check them and their hands are clean as whistles. So it was a good change because the hitters were the ones that were complaining about it. It wasn't us, it wasn't the umpires, but it was a positive thing.
So is it after sorry, Fiore.
No, go ahead.
It's after every single half inning now? You guys are checking the pitchers?
No, it's random. It's random.
Okay.
Yeah. So we check the starting pitcher, like maybe 3 or 4 times, depending upon how many innings they pitch, and then we check every relief pitcher coming into the game, and we could check them coming in, going out. It doesn't matter. It's supposed to be random so that there's no pattern.
It's
Do you
smart
guys-
and it keeps the game clean.
I agree. Do you guys have a say in the rule changes at all?
There's a committee that has an umpire on it, but we could just only voice an opinion, and anything that we voice an opinion about is really to try to make it umpire friendly. But no, the final decision is really not up to us. It's up to the commissioner's office, and even if the players disapprove of a particular change or a particular rule, they can only put it off. I believe it's for 1 year, and if they say no, we don't want this, we're voting against this, they can put it off for 1 year, and then the commissioner can put it in the following year, and I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But we just recommend things, but it's up to the commissioner's office.
We're running up against the clock here. My producers let me know. I have one more final question, and I think this is the one that's been on a lot of people's minds. If you don't want to get into it, that's okay. Do you have a take on ABS?
Well, that's a different. That's talking about a big game changer. We experimented with that. I know they've been doing it in AAA for a while. We experimented with it in spring training, as you probably know, and it's just very different. It's very different. I think eventually, and that could be next year, could be the year after. I think eventually they may institute the challenge system, which is what we experimented with, as opposed to the full, computer calling. But we'll see. It'll be up to them.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Phil. I don't think you realize how much this meant to us. 3 college kids getting to talk to an MLB umpire and learn more about the game. And that's really what it's all about, a love of the game. And I think your ALS work is super important. and I'd strive anybody that can to go back and check that link that you put out there and try to help in any way that they can. But yeah, I'm sure you guys would agree this was such an enriching experience for us.
Well, I enjoyed it. I appreciate it. I appreciate you letting me talk about my Robert Longo ALS fund, because it's important. And again, we're helping people, so I appreciate that. And it was fun. It was fun conversation.
Absolutely,
it's great. It's great. And for our viewers at home, again, that is wefighTals.org. You can go and support. You can go donate right now. It's right up here on the screen, right under me, blocking my face a little bit. Please go and support this. It's an absolutely wonderful cause. And just reading into it and learning about the type of stuff that umpires like Phil Cuzzi do outside of their life, it's really inspiring. So great cause. Yeah, and for all our viewers, please consider making a donation.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Phil. If you're ever up in the area, stop by and say hi, and I'll try to come out to a game that you're calling one time. But thank you so much for coming here on Fiore Calls Game. But that is going to do it for us. For Brandon Kahn and Kyle Reel, this has been Andrew Fiore signing off. We are going to have a member of Savannah Banana Ball coming on next week, Connor Harris. You're going to want to tune in for that. But for this week, this is Fiore calling game.